So here we are, iFilm with Edward Norton, talking about his new film, Down in the Valley. Just to start at the top, when you first read the script, how'd you feel about it? Was it love at first read? Did you see some pitfalls?
Well, it was a strange... David Jacobson directed it and wrote it, and his first just sort of stab at it was almost like this fever dream he had, and a lot of it was very different from the film we ultimately made. He and I spent like 6 months working on it together from when we first talked. But what I read had lots in it that ultimately went away, but at the core of it were these really, I thought, really compelling ideas and characters. And at core, what I responded to in it was, first off, that I loved that he was willing to tell this very complicated, strange story and then conclude it without answering any questions about. He didn't have any desire to reveal the secret of who this character really was or tell you what to feel about him at the end. He was clearly setting up something that was going to bring you right up to the edge of the big question of, like, how do I feel about this along with these children, and then just leave you there to stand there thinking, how do I feel about what I just saw, which is to me a much more fascinating experience than sort of having something neatly buttoned up so you can go out to dinner. And I think I would say in that sense right away I felt like David was the kind of person who fit in the category of like people like Spike Lee or David Fincher, people I've worked with who I think are really committed to that idea of making the audience work at what a film is saying to them. And but I also our initial conversations, I think David and I found that we had a lot of simpatico in our interest in like these ideas about people who are feeling cut off from authenticity, who they don't feel like they're living real lives because of the way that the modern world has kind of separated people from each other, cocooned them, paved over everything. And in that sense, like when I said to David, what are you after here? He said, well, I'm really interested in the way that fantasy can become an escape from fantasy taken too far can almost carry someone to where they're trying to escape reality. And he said, I think that the spiritual sort of desolation that the modern West has is perpetrating on people is really fascinating. And he said, I want to make a Western, but I don't want to make a Western that's just revisiting the same fantasy. I want to make a Western about what the West has actually become. What's the West that you and I experience today? So we were very conscious of trying to make a film that people would go, I walked right through there the other day. I know that place. I know those kids. I've seen that guy. That's that weird drifter that I've seen, out on Magnolia Boulevard or whatever, and it's...
Yeah, something that people can relate to. And also the isolation, I think, is something that people can relate to. So one of the beautiful things in the film is that juxtaposition of the San Fernando Valley and what is just outside of that. And I feel like there's a lot of that in your character where he's caught, but then there's this wide open childlike nature, this hope and belief. And little boys needing something to believe in.
Yeah, he's really he's very beautiful, but he's deeply disturbed, and you're right. I mean, the valley has become what it's become, but then on the fringes of it, you still get this kind of poignant taste of what it was or what it still is on some levels, and it's exactly that sort of that sense of fracture between like these things that are so poetic and beautiful and sad and people connecting with each other. I mean, when my character and Evan's character connect in the beginning, it's very real. This is not a guy like prowling kids at a school. They get something out of each other that they both desperately need, and but it can't hold in a way. It's an inappropriate product of these people feeling incredibly trapped. And I think that I mean, and that was very compelling to me, because I think Fight Club was a really dark film too, or some people felt it was dark, but ultimately I think what people connected with in that was actually the same thing. It was about feeling spiritually numb, or feeling inauthentic, and needing to do almost anything to create a feeling of the real, or of
something real and something solid,
and I do think for our generation and kids younger than us and everything, it's like that's it. In a way, that's the core spiritual challenge. It's like the modern world insulates in so many ways. So, and how do you punch through that? How do you punch through that to find authentic feeling, authentic connection? And these are all, the film to me was David. It was in his own way different from, in his way he was looking at that. He was saying, like, I don't want to look at what the West was, or he said, but I want to look at what it is, what it's become, and what we're actually experiencing here now.